I'm so happy to be here because it's a wonderful crowd and it's -6 in Montreal today, so I'm really happy to be here. But since I'm like between you and cheese, I'm going to try to go quickly. So I'm French, as you can tell, so when I say other, I mean other, and when I say other, I also mean other. So if you don't understand anything I'm saying, the book is in the back and it was translated by a professional translator, so you can just follow in the book. So I've grown up in Montreal, Quebec, as you can tell by the accent, and I've been blogging since I'm 3. And I still have the same typing style, by the way. As Brigitte said, I started working on food ethics about, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 years ago. And it was after reading a book on animal ethics. Since then, I've published 2 books in French, Je mange avec ma tête and this one, Cash Cow. And next week, I'm publishing a 3rd one in French. Again, it's the 21-day vegan challenge. So after writing on why we should move toward a plant-based diet, I'm trying to tell people how they should do it, and an event like today is exactly that, how we should do it. So I'm glad this second book is translated to English and published by Lantern, as we've said earlier. It's an honor for me to be in the same catalog as the vegan in the room. I know Carol J. Adams, for instance, Millie Joy, Joanne McArthur, and we are all published by Lantern, so it's such an honor to be there. I think it's a mistake that they put me in the same catalog because they don't read French properly, but anyways, I'm really happy about that. The big idea behind Cash Cow is the following. The emotional attachment to milk is kind of a victory for an industry we ought to challenge seriously. I think that our attachment to dairy milk is a cultural construction. The attachment to almond milk is something just based on really good taste. And I say that because I've done a lot of lectures on veganism, and many people, I would say most people, agree with me that we should not eat meat, or at least reduce our meat consumption. Like, everybody agrees with me on that. But when it comes to milk and dairy, there's really something different. We are really attached to dairy. I'm sure it's the same here in BC, but in Quebec we love cheese. And yes, you can remove the meat from the plate, it's not too bad, but don't touch cheese. Most of us, and yes, that's me there, as you can tell by the picture, I've grown up in the 70s. So most of us, like me, have grown up with milk and cheese and ice cream, like you can see there. Did you have like the big Seal Test boxes like that here? They were really good. I've also grown up with a Daisy hat, but that's another story. And I remember, and I think you will also remember, how excited I was when the milkman was coming to our place. So it was like every 2 days it was like Santa Claus coming. So there was only my dad, my mom, and me at home, and we were drinking 3 liters of milk every day, and we were so proud of that. And because I was a really good girl, I could have ice cream also. So I was so excited because it was good. I mean, good milk is good for your health. It's good for your bones. It tastes good. So like everything's there. It is good to be happy. In fact, we think that it's normal, natural, and necessary to consume dairy. We think it's normal, natural, and necessary to consume dairy, and that we've been consuming dairy forever. Like every 2 interviews I give, I always get this comment, but yes, you know, humans have been consuming dairy forever, and there you are telling us to stop consuming dairy. Well, no. I know it's the Flintstones, and it's not a super reliable sources when it comes to human history, but the Flintstones did not consume dairy. No, because there was no way you could milk Dino Were you calling it Dino in English? Yeah, okay. So milk consumption became possible with the advance of agriculture, and it only happened 10,000 years ago. Of course, because there is no way you can milk live animal. So, and 10,000 years ago is really, really recent in human history. As you can see there, 200,000 years ago, the Homo sapiens appeared in Africa. So that's exactly us. And we started domesticating goats 13,000 years ago, a bit more than like 15,000 years ago. And we had to domesticate the auroch, which is the ancestor of the dairy cow, in order to consume dairy. So it's really, really recent. And again today, only those who have ancestors that did domesticate animals are able to digest dairy. In fact, all babies are born with an enzyme called lactase, and I'm scared to say that bit in front of you, but and that enzyme breaks the lactose, the sugar, into something we can assimilate. But this enzyme stops working after weaning, and at least 5 different times in history, in our recent past, when people started consuming dairy, a genetic modification appeared in their body that lengthened the activity of the lactase gene. And on this map, and by the way, my slides are already on the Facebook event and on Twitter. If you want to see the graph and all the details, you can access them. But the idea is only people with ancestors in those regions are able to digest dairy today. So it's a mere 25% of the global population that today exhibits the lactase persistence, which means, and that's important, that a large majority of the human population cannot easily digest milk and dairy. So if we get into those intersectionality issues that I'm really interested in, that's another kind of white privilege to think that everybody can and should consume dairy products. It's really, really ethnocentric, because if you look at data, you would see that outside of those white privileged people, most of us cannot digest dairy. So one of the main arguments of the dairy industry is that we need milk for bone health. In Israel, this ad is from Israel, milk builds bones. This one is an American ad. And in the States, bones are simply made of milk. So, and honestly, I mean, I was pretty good in science at school and all of that, and I kind of believe that, you know, there is calcium in milk, there is calcium in my bones. Basically, when I drink my 1 liter of milk every day, that was going like directly in my bones, and I'm sure I'm not the only one, but you're just too shy to admit it. But this, I mean, that's stupid when you say that way, but we still give milk to school kids, and for some doctors, again, today, they're telling their patient that, you know, you need your yogurt every day to keep osteoporosis away, and a mother that doesn't give milk to her children is kind of a bad mother. And I hear that a lot. The fact is, and you probably know it, that yes, we need calcium for bone health, but milk is not the only source of calcium. We also need vitamin D, and especially if you're living north like us, you cannot get it from the sun during the winter. But it's not in the milk naturally neither. It's added to the milk. So if you can add milk, if you can add vitamin D to the milk, you can also just take a pill. Vitamin K is also important for bone health. and it's not found in milk, it's found in green leafy vegetables, and on a topic I'm sure Visanto will cover. But the fact is, like, calcium is everywhere. Like when you go to the grocery store, in the produce alley, all those green stuff, they are full of calcium. Maybe not like the iceberg lettuce, which is mainly water, but think of, you know, kale and all those green leafy, they are full of calcium. Broccoli, tiny sesame seeds, all of those are amazing sources of calcium, and there's no advertising telling you that. And despite those facts, and I mean, these are facts, they are not like things that some weird vegan made up. There is weird vegan, but I'm not one. And, and despite those facts, the Canadian Food Guide, like the American Food Pyramid, still give a section to dairy. Well, it's called dairy and substitute. So it's like, you know, you have like a plan B if you cannot digest dairy, but it's still dairy that have their own sections. But why not a section on protein, for instance? Why just leaving a section for dairy? And if you look at food guides in other countries in the world, there's no section on dairy like that. The Harvard School of Public Health is super critical toward the recommendation on milk consumption either. Also, not are printed, you know, in those official guides. They say, and I'm quoting them, that they are based on shaky evidence, and they haven't changed in many years to reflect the major advances in our understanding of the connection between health and diet. So in the Harvard Health plate that you have here, on the top of the plate, what you have is not a glass of milk, is a glass of water, like what you should drink, like me right now. And it's really small, but they say that to limit milk and dairy to 1 or 2 servings a day, not to 1 glass of milk is good and 2 is better, or something like that, like the industry is telling us. Their conclusion is clear, and I'm talking about the Harvard School of Public Health, which are kind of independent. They are not influenced by lobbies like Health Canada. So they say that yet dairy is given a prominent place despite the evidence that high intake of dairy products do not, and that's important, they do not reduce the risk of osteoporosis and may increase the risk of some chronic diseases. So what we can say is that the official nutritional guidelines and the dairy producer rely on data from many studies to issue their recommendation, but that we have to consume dairy in order to be in good health. Like, they're not making that up, they base their recommendation on data. But their studies are kind of different than the one associating dairy with health problem. How come? Well, there's a study I really like. It's from Dr. Lesser in 2007 that tried to understand how can research end up being contradictory. How can, like, sometimes you test something and other times you test the same thing, and 2 different studies come to different conclusions. And the answer is basically, and that won't be a big surprise, it's influence and bias. So Dr. Lesser and his colleagues, they analyzed 203 studies or something like that on the effect of beverage on health. It was on soft drinks, juices, and milk, and they checked for each study who were the people behind it, who was funding the study. And the results are pretty amazing. Scientific articles funded by beverage manufacturers are 4 to 8 times more likely to be favorable to the product than independent articles. No study funded by the industry reaches conclusions that went against its interest. And when you look at what's going on at the Association of Dairy Producers of Canada, you see how much money is put on research there. So of course, you come out with studies that kind of go in the direction you're looking for. The distribution of milk in school started recently, since the early 20th century, and it wasn't the time when we needed to fatten children, which is now not the case anymore today. The obesity is kind of a bigger problem, but politics remain the same. Worst, we do distribute milk with added sugar. It's kind of weird, and I hope it's not the case in BC, but in Quebec we do distribute chocolate milk to children, because you know milk is so important that it doesn't matter to add a bit of sugar in it to make sure children take it. And if you compare the amount of sugar in a bottle of Coke that we, thank God, removed from our school with a glass of chocolate milk, basically it's almost the same. So we haven't addressed the real problem, which is obesity. We've seen in the last 20 minutes that it's not normal or necessary to consume dairy. And it's important to understand that the dairy industry is not an industry like any other, because its raw material is not like any other. In our society, blood or human milk or organs cannot be bought or sold, because we see they are not commodities, and that's perfectly fine. On the picture there, it's human milk, and we don't sell human milk, and that's perfectly fine. We want it this way. But how can we sell cow milk like we sell apple juice? I mean, even if you do not think that animals should be considered as person, you can at least recognize that a cow is not an apple tree. There's something really different between an animal that produces milk and a tree that produces fruit. Cows are living beings that deserve some respect. Problem is, there's not much respect in industry. We consider cows as producing machine. The reality of cows is really, really far from what we see on milk cartons. In Quebec, 92% of cows are chained like this. I know numbers are lower in BC. Most cows are free, I think, but still it's not holidays for them, and we will see why. Most of them first are kept indoor. And I have a short video I won't show you, but you have it on my slide. When given the choice, cows prefer to go outside. That's when weather permits, and that seems obvious, but some researchers at UBC did the study. So they just did the basic thing, which is leaving the cows free to do whatever they wanted. And so the cows spent half of their day outdoors and half of their day indoor, because it's what they just wanted. But in Canada, most of the cows are just kept indoor. And when we ask industry why they're doing that, they say it's for the cow's well-being. And that video is a really funny one that you can see, too bad for you. And it's in Scotland, so like if you like weird accent like mine, you're gonna like this one. And Daisy the cow learned to open the barn door to let her sister cow go out at night. So for many days, like the farmer didn't understand what was going on. Every morning the cows were outdoors while they were supposed to be indoor. And so he just put a camera there and watched, and Daisy opens the barn door with her tongue. So I love to show that video, because we kind of think that cows are dumb animals, and we think that because it makes us feel more comfortable, probably. But no, they are super brilliant animals. And if we think they are dumb, maybe it's because they're just working too much and are just tired after giving that much milk. I don't know if you you had a baby in your life or your wife had a baby, but giving milk to a baby, you require a lot of energy. Bridget was telling me she needs 600 calories more a day because she's milking. The problems with cows because of genetic modifications, genetic selection, are producing 2 or 3 times more milk than they were producing in the 60s. So producing that much milk causes a lot of problems like mastitis, joint pains, etc., etc. So even if it's an organic farm with a farmer that loves its animal and all of that, you still have cows that produce a lot of milk and suffer from producing that much milk. And it's fascinating to see that much effort required from a cow to produce that much milk is in par with jogging for 6 hours. So like jog for 6 hours and try to see if you're going to be ready to show your enthusiasm, or a day competing the Tour de France. So that's why cows look stupid and are not moving, just because they don't have any more energy left. And something we kind of forget when we look at our milk is that the life of a cow is a series of insemination, and I can say rape and calving, and that cycle happens only 5 times. It begins not by like a cow falling in love with a bull. That doesn't happen. It starts with a rape, with insemination. The cow becomes pregnant 9 months after, like humans, when she gives birth. She's separated from her calf all the time. In every single farm, organic, not organic, industrial, whatever, the calf goes away, and we'll come back to that in a second. And 3 months after, she's put back pregnant again. And that's her life for 4 or 5 cycles. And when she's done, in fact, she's super tired after that. She's just sent to the slaughterhouse to become hamburger meat. And that's it. I mean, on this graph you have flowers and everything, but there's no flowers and everything on a cow's life. And I've seen those places where cows are bought to send to the slaughterhouse, so cows that are almost ready to be killed, and they are tired, and many of them just don't survive. Quickly, you know, male calves that are born in dairy farm have not much value, so the female will become other dairy cows, but the male will just be raised to become meat, and under terrible condition, and we can discuss that a bit later. I had images from Chilliwack farm that hopefully you've seen here in BC, and the idea was to show you that even that in every farm there is cruelty. And I will finish in 2 minutes just by a quote from, and by the way, that's my husband, but he's brilliant, so that's why I quote him. I try to understand why we keep on consuming dairy when we see images like that, and why some people quit meat and still consume dairy. And he says that when we're about to consume milk, even if we know it has been produced under unacceptable conditions, we can still tell ourselves that it could have been produced without any suffering. This is obviously a very bad argument, but I think that this mere possibility is enough for us to stop feeling guilty. And I think it's true. I also often get this comment, you know, but yes, but if I had a cow in my backyard and she was happy and stayed with her calf, no, that doesn't exist. That's not the reality. And if you go back to my slides after, check this graph, which is amazing. The graph showed on 2 axes, yes, the mind and the edibility of animals, and you see that the animal we consume, we attribute them less mind, capability than the animals we don't consume. Organic is not better, and even the Canadian Center for Organic say that cows from organic farms are not on better conditions than cows from traditional farms.